Hello and welcome to my review for the first episode of 7 Worlds, 1 Planet. So this series came out in 2019 and it deals with the continents, hence why there's 7 episodes, 7 worlds, 7 continents. So before this series was announced, I'd always thought that the continents was a great idea for a series, because most series dealt with habitats. That was the main thing since Planet Earth. But also the continents would be a good idea, because you've got all these different habitats on the same continents, but they're inhabited by different animals. I just thought it lended itself to one of these series, so when they announced that they were doing this, I was very happy. And yeah, this episode opens up with David Attenborough on the shores of Iceland, and you get this great montage about what the series is going to be like. It's really good, it's really inspiring. So the first episode of this series deals with Antarctica. So this was the episode that I was looking forward to the least when it came out, because it was the continent that A is the least diverse, and B, the continent where I feel like every animal that was there has already been filmed pretty heavily in the past. So I was kind of like, okay, the Antarctica one, it'll be fine, we'll get through it, and the rest of it will be a lot better. So this episode opens up with some stunning footage of Antarctica. You really get a sense how bleak and desolate it is, really cool stuff. And we open up with Weddell seals. So the Weddell seal stuff was great. I think they're a great animal to open up with, because they're the most southerly breeding mammal in the world. And I've said this before, but I think Weddell seals get overlooked a lot, because they're the seal species that orcas tend to go after. You don't really think of them as being pretty hardy, but they actually are. This sequence follows a mother and her pup. It's in winter, so there's no predators about. However, you get a lot of bad storms, and the pup's really struggling. The mother has to shield it, and it gets to a point where it's just too much for the mother, so she has to essentially sacrifice her pup to go into the water and escape the cold, and the pup's left to basically fend for itself. After the storm passes, we see the mother emerge, and there's a couple of dead pups, so it's pretty sad. You really get a sense of how bleak this is. It's a really dangerous world, but thankfully her pup survives. He gets to the water. It's really nice. Because the pup's quite cute, you're rooting for it. It did a very good job of dispelling my fears from this episode, because I kind of thought, okay, it's going to be the same stuff. I'm not going to care that much about it. I was very invested in this sequence, and it did a very good job of setting you up for what the rest of the episode was going to be like. Then we move away from Antarctica for a bit. We go to South Georgia, which is technically, under the Antarctica umbrella, I guess. And here we see the usual faces. We see the king penguins. They're quite fun. Watching the chicks harassing the elephant seals was quite funny, especially when the elephant seals just get a bit fed up with them and chase them away. Very funny stuff. The best part of South Georgia, though, was the elephant seals. Obviously, we've seen elephant seal males fighting, so many times before. It's been done to death. However, this was so good. It was a really good sequence. It was filmed so well. The shots from the back of the elephant seals, just watching them basically thunder across the beach. You got a sense how big they were, and watching every kind of fold of blubber just wobbling about. Really did a good job of showing you how big they were. And the fight is pretty epic. It's a really good fight. It's one of the best ones in recent years. And when a male is getting chased away, again, you get a sense of that scale, you get a sense of how that power that they have. Really good stuff, really like that sequence. Then we focus on the ocean, we talk about how there's all these currents around Antarctica. What I like about this series throughout it is the geography lessons. There's a lot of geography in this series, which does a good job of highlighting how the habitats that are in these continents exist, the forces that were at work to get them there. Really cool stuff. And here we focus on humpback whales eating krill. It's nothing we haven't seen before. We see them bubble netting. It's really cool watching all the spirals of bubbles forming. It's a pretty massive thing. It's not like just a couple of whales shooting bubbles to get the fish. It's quite an extensive system they've got there, and it is really cool. It's a good sequence, and yeah, it's pretty good as well. And then we kind of talk about climate change for a bit. Climate change and environmental issues are a big part of this series. Something this series does very well throughout, better than a lot of series that came after it, was talk about environmental issues in a really good way and really hammer home the point. And as this is the first episode of the series, it really needed to hammer that home, and it really does. We obviously know that climate change is a thing and the ice is melting, but before this we didn't really talk about how it affected weather systems. It creates all these really bad storms, and we focus on grey-headed albatross, which are a species of albatross that nest in this one island. We see one that's got a chick. It's really nice. The mother's away feeding, but because obviously they've got to travel quite far for food, sometimes the male has to leave the chick behind to get food. So the chick's basically left to fend for itself, and the chick looks quite cute. It's really nice to look at. And then the storms come, and we see these chicks are getting hammered, and you get a really good sense of how ill-equipped it is to deal with this weather. And in the aftermath, we see that the chick has been blown off its nest, and it's really struggling on the ground. Because its feathers aren't waterproof, it's very likely to get wet and get hypothermia. So it really needs to get back on the nest. And you see other chicks that just didn't make it through the night. And when the male comes back, you're like, okay, good, the chick's going to be helped by its dad. Not so, because these albatross can't actually recognise their chicks unless they're on the nest, which is really heartbreaking. This sequence is absolutely brilliant. It really is great. It does a really good job of kind of teasing that. They do kind of draw out the explanation, so you're kind of wondering, okay, the dad's back, but why isn't he helping his chick? They do take their time to explain it, which I think is good. It kind of adds to the tension, and you know that no one's helping that chick. The chick's just trying to get back to its nest. It's trying to kind of alert its dad that it's there, and it's absolutely really heartbreaking. It's really sad. I remember watching it being quite emotional. I was still emotional when I watched it again. It's really good stuff. So you're really, really rooting for that chick to get back on the nest, and eventually it does, thank God. And like other sequences I've talked about in other series, while it has a happy ending, it does a very good job of hammering home the point that this isn't what happens all the time, and that these animals are really struggling. And yeah, it's pretty dire. It does paint quite a bleak picture of what's going on there. And then we move a bit further south, we see gentoo penguins. So they're species of penguin that don't get highlighted too much, I don't think. It's usually emperor penguins, Adelie penguins, or king penguins. It was nice to see them because they're the fastest penguins, and this sequence does a really good job of highlighting that using drone footage. So the drone footage in this series is great. I think there's some series out there that really, pioneer a type of footage. Like when I think of Life of Mammals, I think of that as the infrared series. When I think of Life in Undergrowth, it's the macro filmmaking series. This is the drone footage series. It really pioneers drone footage throughout the rest of the series, but this episode, again, does a really good job of highlighting how great it is. It's used really epically. We see this one gentoo penguin getting hunted by orcas, and there's 4 orcas, and they all kind of come out of nowhere. You see one kind of ghostly shape, like, following it, and you're like, what is that? And by the time you realise it's an orca, another 2 have popped up, they're another one, and you're watching these 4 orcas hunting this one little penguin, and it's absolutely amazing. I mean, you really get a sense how epic this is. I was on the edge of my seat when it came out. I was on the edge of my seat again watching it. It's great. It's a really good sequence. You really feel for the penguin, and obviously the penguin does eventually get caught, but it puts up a hell of a fight. It's a really good chase, really good sequence, really great stuff. This is then followed by further gentoo penguin stuff, where we see chicks. Now when the parents leave, the chicks have got to look after themselves. They've got to get down to the water. However, again, due to climate change, there's a lot more ice in the water, and this creates a proper barrier around the island. And wouldn't you know it, there's a leopard seal in there using it as cover. And the leopard seal sequence, again, something we've seen before. We've seen leopard seals going for penguins many times before, many times since. This is amazing. It's one of the best, to be honest. It may be the best leopard seal hunt. I would need to go back to some of the early ones, but it's pretty great. And here you see the chicks going out. When the leopard seal pops up, they're all like, what? We've got to get past that. And when they do go for it, the leopard seal just picks them off. It's pretty easy. They can't swim through this ice, and they can't walk on it. They kind of just have to clamber over it. And the leopard seal's just like, yeah, I can easily pick you off. Cool, get you, kill one, get another. The leopard seal roaring as well is pretty good. Does a really good job of making it seem more threatening. And there's that one penguin that you're really rooting for that basically just escapes the leopard seal, goes right back to shore. The leopard seal follows it. Again, using drone footage to capture this is amazing. But that penguin still got to get back out to the water, so has to go again. And the leopard seal does catch up to it. In true, almost like it was doing an orca impression, it's kind of like, nah, I'll just leave it, I'll just toy with it for a bit. And it absolutely does that. And again, you see a really sadistic side of the leopard seal. It makes you root against it and makes you root even more for the penguin. So when the penguin does kind of get out to open water, it's able to get in a bigger chunk of ice. And the leopard seal gets onto it, but isn't really able to get there. And again, you get a sense of how exhausted both animals are. Like the leopard seal's kind of shuffling over and it's shouting, but it's kind of all bark and no bite at that point, and eventually gives up. And the penguin manages to get back out to sea. Really good stuff. Again, another amazing sequence. You can kind of tell at this point that I was very pleasantly surprised with this episode. It's very good stuff. Then we see when the ice freezes over, the ocean's covered. However, beneath the ocean, we've still got loads of stuff. And again, like everything else in this episode, when I saw this, I was like, okay, I've seen all the undersea invertebrates in Antarctica. Okay, but also like everything else, I was so pleasantly surprised. We saw nudibranchs for a bit, see them mating, that was pretty cool, but the best part was the anemones. You see this big jellyfish hovered over them, and it's like, okay, the jellyfish is looking for prey, you might be getting the anemones, and we see the anemones have got one of its tentacles in it, and you're like, okay, maybe the jellyfish is going to do something with the anemones, but not the case. The anemones have actually got the jellyfish, and are just reeling it in, and as it's all sped up, you see this really epic struggle for this jellyfish trying to get away from the anemones, as it's slowly being pulled in to be consumed. Really good stuff, really epic as well. Didn't know about that, and that is easily the best Antarctica undersea invertebrate sequence I've ever seen. Really cool stuff, really like that. And then we get to the end of this episode, and we get to the most depressing part of the episode, one of the most, if not the most depressing part of the series, and that's when they talk about whaling. So whaling isn't really a major issue in the world at the moment. This did a good job of highlighting how bad it was in its heyday. We see all these whaling stations in Antarctica. The music's really somber, and they actually incorporate whale song into the score, which creates a very eerie atmosphere. And Attenborough doesn't hold back when he's describing just how much of an atrocity this was. The fact that there was the biggest animal we've ever recorded, like this massive blue whale, and it was just butchered on this ramp in like 2 hours. As Attenborough says, it probably is one of the big low points of our relationship with the natural world. And if that wasn't bleak enough, we talk about the southern right whale, and this is just harrowing. You're just following these right whales swimming about in this little lagoon, and they just vividly describe what went on, how they got their name. I mean, they were called right whales because they were the right whales to hunt, because they were so inquisitive. They came up to the boats and they just killed them. They were just so easy to kill, and they would target the mothers and the calves because they'd go to these lagoons and they would just kill them right there and then, and it was just heartbreaking. It's really sad. Like I've said before in this video, when I watched it the first time, I felt really emotional. It's quite a sad sequence, and I still felt every bit as emotional watching it again. It has stood the test of time. It's really sad. They did a really good job of describing how bad it was. And I don't think there's any other media out there that has really hammered home to me just how bad industrial whaling was. But obviously that was very depressing. We do end on a high note though. We talk about how the right whales have made a recovery since whaling's been banned. They're doing a lot better. There's a lot more of them around. Some of the same whales that were around then are still kicking about. And we end with this big epic feeding frenzy of whales. We see fin whales, we see humpback whales. The humpback whales are dwarfed by the fin whales. Fin whales are just massive. They're the second biggest animals on Earth, and we don't see them very often. It was really cool to see them here. And loads of other animals as well. You've got penguins, you've got seals. Everything's out there. It's really good. It's a really good end to the episode. And it does a good job of showing you that, Antarctica, yeah, it's pretty bleak, it's pretty desolate, but there's so much there, and it's such a cool place, and it's really good. It's a really good end to the episode. And then you get the diaries. It's all about the people filming in South Georgia. It is good. It was funny watching them getting seasick on the way there, and when they're there, it's fun. They're filming the elephant seals. A few of them almost get knocked over by the elephant seals. That's quite fun. And at the end of that sequence is quite sad as well, because they're like, climate change is happening. A lot of these animals might not be here in the next few years. And it's quite emotional for the guys there. It's quite sad. Again, it's pretty good as well. Despite the fact that I wasn't excited for this episode coming out at the time, it's pretty brilliant. This episode was my favourite episode of the series the first time I watched it. And it's going to be pretty hard to top again. It's pretty great. I mean, highlights, what do you choose? It could be the whaling stuff at the end. It could be the leopard seals. It could be the orcas and the penguins. It could be the Weddell seals at the start. It could be the undersea stuff. It could be the grey albatrosses there. That's pretty great. Literally everything in this episode is a highlight. When I do my top 10 list at the end of this series, I'm going to really have to, try and make sure not everything is going to be from this one episode, because the rest of the series is great as well. It's easily the best episode about Antarctica I've ever seen. So yeah, it kicks off the series with a bang, and it's pretty good. So yeah, what did you think of this episode? Did you like it as much as I did? Was it your favourite episode of the series? What was your highlight? I know it's a struggle to pick, but what were the highlights for you? Let me know in the comments below. And yeah, I'll be doing the next one next week, which is about Asia, so we'll look forward to that. And as ever, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, or don't if you don't want to. It's perfectly fine. And I'll see you next time, and goodbye.